Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 5th of September, 2023, and I'm a minute late, but got a little distracted. Is anyone on? I don't know. I don't look, and so just bear with me. I want to make sure I get through some major news points before I start talking about, oh my goodness, so many other things going on, and that's if I even get time because I'm still restricted to our time frame. Tamara Lich, she's in the news because she's in Ottawa. Currently, today's the first day of trials, and I'm going on X, Twitter X, and other social media, and I'm not surprised. But there's a lot of people that are calling her. It's there's a lot more negative than positive news regarding her out of the Ottawa area, unfortunately. But when I get out of that bubble, there's a lot more people that are offering support and love and care and concern and stuff like that. And so I could go and actually, no, I will. I'm going to start with present Rebel News. I know some people think that they're controlled opposition. I know that other people think that they're extreme right and all this other stuff, but just don't take the baby out with the bathwater or whatever. Like always do your own research. Sorry, I'm also looking for a video as I'm talking. Do your own research and make your own opinions on people, ladies and gentlemen, and or on news broadcasts, right? Like you should be able to decipher what.
Robert Krajcik here for Rebel News in Ottawa, Ontario, just ahead of the Tamara Lich trial of political persecution, which is about to begin.
What's your response then if you do get arrested, if you're the next person that police do arrest?
Hold the line! Hold the line!
Lich is being charged with mischief, obstructing police, and counseling others to commit mischief and intimidation in relation to her role as one of the Freedom Convoy's primary organizers. For those needing a refresher, the Freedom Convoy was easily one of the largest human rights and civil liberties demonstrations in modern history, where tens of thousands of Canadians protested on and around Parliament Hill in opposition to mRNA injection mandates, the so-called vaccines, and restrictions on their freedoms imposed upon them within the framework of so-called public health. The demonstrations drew Canadians from across the country and took place in the early winter months of 2022. Rather than speaking with protesters opposed to the federal government's draconian abuses marketed as so-called public health responses to COVID-19, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoked martial law in response to the Freedom Convoy by using the Emergencies Act. Lich was held in jail for 49 days after her arrest in February of 2022. The Crown stated that Lich is facing up to 10 years in jail if found guilty of the charges against her.
My mother died by herself because I couldn't go to a long-term care facility. This is not right. You know, this has to.
I'm just going to stop it there just so people can let that sink in. She wasn't able to be there for her mother on her deathbed because of the mandates and the restrictions and stuff like that that were imposed on people. And I'm going to get into this, and this is stuff I've said right from the beginning, and even before the convoy came to Ottawa, like I said in previous videos. This is all staged and planned. But the same people at the top that use these as distractions or diversions or a way that we, that we think that like Operation Trust, right? Like that we have a means or a way of voicing our opinions based on reality and not this military industrial pharmaceutical complex that's being pushed by and this is all over the world, right? So this is not just Canada or just a few countries. This is all over the world. That there is there's a misconception that other leaders are more well liked in their areas, and I'm going to talk about this. But anyway,
and people have been separated for so long. You know, I've had so many hugs, and do you know how long it's been since people were allowed to hug? And that's not right.
Our reporting here with Rebel News amounts to a continuation of our ongoing reporting that was going on during the Freedom Convoy.
And no, I don't just like post these videos because like they have like jacked people. But I do respect people that are obviously like clearly people that work out in like the bodybuilding community, because I'm still in that community, even though I haven't competed in the last couple of years because of the mandates. Like even 2 years ago, I was prepped to be in Toronto, and even when I was there, it was canceled when I was there because because the mandates and stuff like that. And I really thought I was going to win that show. I posted my bikini, videos and photos and stuff like that at the time. So, but yeah, like I'm definitely going to be competing again. But I do have to get qualified again at the provincial level, unfortunately, before I do any more pro shows. But yeah.
Where Rebel News was offering you accurate information, unlike what was being promoted by the propagandists in the so-called mainstream media. We're going to continue that tradition here, that ethic here. We're going to maintain those values here, and we're going to be here every day of this trial, of this political persecution, to deliver accurate information to you, our beloved audience. For what it's worth, since I live here in Ottawa, Ontario, and have most of my life, I was here every single day of the Freedom Convoy, both in a professional and personal context. I observed what was happening. I had a pretty good sense of what was going on, given that I was here in downtown 6 hours a day across the entire process, the entire demonstration. For those willing and able to help Tamara Lich combat this political persecution, please consider donating to the civil liberties organization known as the Democracy Fund, which is helping fund her legal defense. And they will provide you with a tax receipt because this is a tax deductible donation. You can go to helptamara.com to offer assistance. For those of you in the audience that love our on-the-ground reporting, please help offset our costs. We can't do this for free. We're not receiving funding from the government like the usual suspects in the so-called mainstream media, and throw in something over at tamaratrial.com.
The people are awakening to a force that cannot be suppressed. Glory be to freedom, glory be to Canada, and glory be to all of you. Thank you.
For those of you who are able to and want to help Tamara Lich combat this political persecution, please contribute to her legal defense fund at helptamara.com. And for those of you out there that love our on-the-ground coverage, please assist us. Understand we can't do this for free. We have operational costs. We don't get funding from the government like the usual suspects in the mainstream media. So please visit.
Okay, so that's on Tamara Lich. Tamara Lich, I don't know why I always mispronounce her name, but I will stop this. And then I'll go back to my streaming. Sorry about this, my apologies. And I'm going to present just a video by Tucker Carlson. I've shared this before. Jimmy Dore has as well. People really need to start watching these and stop like judging people based on what your friends and family think about people, right? Because yeah.
Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone is with us. Hi, Max. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy. How you doing?
So I saw the Tucker Carlson segment he did on Monday, and I want to just go over it with you. You were there, right? You were there on January 6th, Max?
I was the Jewish QAnon alternative shaman.
So there's a lot of video that has been released to Tucker Carlson. He is the #1 news show in America. So why wouldn't you? So McCarthy, the speaker, the Republican speaker, now has gotten control of that stuff instead of the Democrats and Republicans establishment. Now they gave over having access to those tapes of what happened on January 6th. Now they gave him to Tucker Carlson. And here he makes his case that the January 6th committee is a bunch of liars who concocted a narrative.
If there's one takeaway from the corpus of footage that we spent 3 weeks looking at, it's that the January 6th committee lied. Its members are liars. And as the result of those lies, core civil liberties in this country were eroded. People went to prison. They're in prison as of right now, unjustly. So those lies had consequences.
So that's a big statement. That's the #1 newsman in America, or he's the host of the #1 news show in America. And I saw an article that said more Democrats watch Tucker Carlson in the demo than watch Rachel Maddow. So it's a very popular news show with Americans. And he just said everybody on the January 6th, one thing we know for sure is that they're all liars. That's the #1 news show, turning the narrative completely 180. And so here he is, he makes his case. This is his general point is that we've been lied to and only shown a sliver. And here's his case.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice,
And I just want to, this is probably going to seem outrageous to some people, but if Bernie Sanders became president, this is the exact kind of shit they would have did to him. They would have russiagated him for 4 straight years, and then they would have made his followers look like violent insurrectionists, and they have to be shunned from polite society because they're the only people standing up against the Uniparty. That's what would have happened to Bernie Sanders.
He
And
wasn't
it's
even
like
president. They said his followers hate women.
They said his followers hate women. They said he hate women. They said he was a Russian. He was getting propped up by the Russians. Go, Max, you want to say something?
Remember the chair throwing incident in Nevada?
They made them out to be violent at a bullshit caucus in Nevada. They said that they were throwing chairs, and then senators from the Democratic Party were flipping them off, and they said they were doing that because they were being violent, which was all made up. They just made it up, just like this January 6th stuff is largely made up. Not all of it. There were some violence happening there, but watch what Tucker has to say.
viewing the full video record of January 6th, is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous.
Wow.
A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system.
So now you're not allowed to believe that, and we're not allowed to say that on YouTube. We're not saying that the 2020 election was in any way anything but above board and perfect. But the 2016 election, you could say it was stolen, and any nefarious thing you want to say about it, it's okay because Donald Trump won. So you can say that all day long. In fact, they still say it, that it was a coup by the Russian government. That's what they say about 2016.
Can I say that George W. Bush stole it from Gore now that we like George W. Bush?
I'm not sure if you can say that either now. But anyway, so just so you know, those people, they were bad because they thought that the election was stolen from them. Now, when the Democrats, for the 4 years previous to them, thought the election was stolen from them, they were good. That's good. These people are bad for thinking the same thing. Okay, here we go.
Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
Make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every
So you see there was law enforcement there, right?
moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show the Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate.
I've shown this multiple times before. I showed it, not this specific footage, but I showed footage even that day that even like there were people that were lifting up barricades and stuff like that. There were government officials that were breaking the windows and pushing people in, and even like the Ray Epps thing that's already been discussed. He was like we're trying to incite these riots, and even the days leading up to this event, they were meeting with senators and different leaders within Washington in order to stage and plan this stuff and make it bigger than what it actually was, which is why I was talking about Khmer Unleashed and this, like what went on with the Freedom Convoy, because of the same stuff, right? This is all staged and planned by these same people. Oftentimes, it's corporatists that are working with government officials, unfortunately, that are duped into and weak, to enable this stuff. Like, it's just disgusting to me, and people getting prison terms for literally like being enabled by people that were literally trying to just bait them, essentially. Like, it's really it's frustrating to try to explain this stuff, because like I do work with government. It's been over 20 plus years, and I've lost people, and I've sacrificed myself, and based on lies. And that's why, like, I'm very passionate about speaking on this stuff. And so the fact that people are getting jail time when they're getting baited by weak individuals who are exploiting their positions and are weak enough and corrupted enough in order to be put in those positions to begin with. It's just frustrating that anyone that wants to speak out on this stuff and just exploit an opportunity that was put there, you know what I mean, by the elected officials. And even with Marco Mendicino, he's a public safety officer. He just resigned, but it should be a disgrace. There should be jail. He's been like on the record, even in cabinet hearings and stuff like that, lying to Canadians during the Freedom Convoy, claiming that people were causing fires when they found out that was not true at all. It was other groups, and that the reason why 911 and others were called is because of BLM members and Antifa members that were coming in across the border, and or people from Ottawa, locals, that were starting fights and causing scenes and breaking, breaking windows and break lines and so much stuff, you know what I mean, and exploiting the and again the media lying too about the homeless situation. I've volunteered at the mission now for several years, and this is confirmed and easily I can get obviously proof I need for this as well. And I was sharing, with the director at the time, who was also like a very smart man, and seeing this for what it was, and also like calling out the fact that the homeless men and women, unfortunately, were getting exploited and for a lying cause. And then Marco Mendicino also trying to like employ tanks when he has no background or experience at all with any of this stuff. And again, it's like and Brian Fox, head of Enterprise, is the one who allegedly was carrying the knee up with that Nazi flag in that first weekend, just like the Ray Eppses in friggin' Washington, right, to try to incite a riot. And I was there as well at the Freedom Convoys, not just like the guy from Rebel News. And and also trying to take surveillance and stuff like that, and I saw the people that were there, right, and I knew that they were just biting at the chop, you know what I mean, to just like, oh yeah, and then crisis actors as well. People that are pretending to be drunk, you know what I mean, and belligerent veterans and or right wing extremists and all this other stuff in order to make it look like they're people that they're not. And there's people that also dress like religious people, by the way, that are atheists in order to like push their own agendas and or certain groups pushing their agendas. Like, for example, that Walk for Freedom on the 20th of September. There's already groups in all over Canada like they're going to be doing counter protests. So what we're just doing is actually, I'm not going to say what we're doing, but it's all very peaceful, and it's just a way of like not acknowledging their existence and like just making it about the children and not about people who just want to exploit and or groom children and or act like children. And so anyway, this is very important.
And at Chamber, Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate.
They opened a door for him.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with a depiction of Jacob Chansley.
fake religious people don't cite or reference the Bible in actuality, any quotes or any psalms or anything like that, because they don't know it and haven't read it. So the fact that he was quoting the Bible means that he is that he believes in God and or a creator.
You've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, if you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like Bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists?
Not armed,
Not
not
Jacob
dangerous.
Chansley. And the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next?
And I will reiterate, and I know I'm going on all these freaking tangents, but like there are walkthroughs and events like this that happen all the time at the Capitol. And there's a woman named Susan Rosenberg who actually is the one that funded and started one of the people that started Black Lives Matter, and she was an extreme leftist, still is, and she but actually bombed Capitol buildings and was like doing protests like that and actually damaged multiple buildings, and she was even jailed for it, and she was acquitted by Bill Clinton, a Democrat, and now a member of BLM, or was, and again assisted in enabling it. So how the heck, because like that, like not that jail time or prison time or any of that stuff yet, and then again people repeatedly, and there was even a more violent protest like even after that, but you didn't hear about it, and it was I don't, this is not to vilify a group, because like that's not what I'm trying to speak out against. But there was like a certain group that's a minority that anyways, there was more violence and things being broken and stuff like that during other events. So like take a look at like the actual actual I guess tourist count even of the amount of people that actually go and walk through these buildings on a regular basis.
Next to him, place him under arrest. Until now, no one could even prove that even happened.
It's a public, anyway.
But it did.
So let me bring in Max. So that story seemed very concocted. I've heard other things about that guy, that he was some kind of a religious peacenik. But again, let's remember, nobody had a gun. He thanked the cops right in there for letting them in, which we saw. We've seen videos of cops pulling back the gates, letting them in. And I'm going to show you more video coming up of cops talking about how they were abandoned by their superiors and they didn't give them any backup. And it all seems to be intentional. And so as if they wanted this to happen. So obviously they wanted this to happen. And this is I'm speaking, and I'm going to show you video where the FBI won't tell you how many FBI undercover people they had in that crowd. So this was instigated by them. And that's what these videos are revealing.
And Nancy Pelosi threatened to punch Donald Trump in the face that day. And there's like zero issue with that, like an actual threat of physical violence. And
that the story that they chose to tell, the January 6th committee, is a lie. Now, let me throw it over to you, Max. What do you have to say about this?
Well, Jacob Chansley says that he is a practitioner of ahimsa, which is an ancient Indian practice of nonviolence, and that he is religiously opposed to harming another person physically. And it's unclear, therefore, what he did to get more than 3 years in prison, except being one of the most visibly recognizable people to participate in the what's known as the Capitol riot, the January 6th protest. I saw him there. As you said, I was a witness to the event. So I just went down as a reporter, and I just saw him walking around like he was at Burning Man. He was just being merry and taking photos with everyone. I didn't see him commit any acts of violence or vandalism. And as you can see, he was ushered around the building by Capitol Police. He's since been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia in prison. This didn't factor into the extreme sentence he got. And I really recommend that everyone read Chris Hedges' piece, which is up at ScheerPost, called Lynching the Deplorables. And it's about how the 9/11 model that was applied to Muslims and Muslim Americans, including many Muslim American civil society leaders who were arrested and raped.
Also stage and plan event. And I'm even on the record talking about that like years ago. And I was even on Andreas Zertis' podcast last year. And I don't know if I was the first one to talk about it. I have no idea. He's a genius, brilliant, and so maybe not. But also shout out to him as well. We should take a look at his channel. I haven't mentioned or shouted out about him in a while. Yeah, he's like also like one of those giants. I do believe giants did exist, and possibly still do in areas that we just don't have access to. But I was talking about ants and how I was thinking about ants and why the reason why that title in my live stream is because there are people that have, you know, been the first, or the people that have actually done the research and the experimentations and or have the experience and the the expertise, whatever you want to call it, in order to make assessments and predict events, and then call out a lot of big things that are being seen as conspiracy theories, but are actually just conspiracies, because there's been facts and evidence that have been also shown, especially by me, right? If you look at a lot of my references and stuff like that that I share in a lot of my videos description boxes, and I've shared on multiple social media platforms a lot of links and data that I've compiled and put together regarding so much of the stuff that I've been talking about, and even where there have been people that are now making it more mainstream, but that I know that they either it was them and or people that they're married to and or family or whatever, people that were connected intimately with them, that were following me before I even knew who they were, and so taking my content and getting it out there and getting, again, I'm not saying that it's not great. It's good that this information is getting out there. It's just I wish that people would also do shout outs with the actual people that they're getting their information from, and I guess the alpha male thing too, right? Where it's just unfortunate, but they want to I don't know, they want to be the ones that are the knight in shining armor, and then I don't look like a knight in shining armor, so I guess they don't want to I don't know, confirm that I'm who they're getting their information from, and not that it's uniquely theirs, and it is what it is, but yeah.
After 9/11 under orders from John Ashcroft is now in many ways being applied to these kind of right-wing Americans and Americans affiliated with the pro-Trump and January 6th movement, and the treatment of them in DC jail and in prison is horrendous. I mean, we're talking about solitary confinement. Many of them during the COVID lockdowns were kept in their cells for 23 hours a day. One had his face literally broken in a beating by a prison guard. And the sentencing a lot of it is based on the propaganda we've seen from the January 6th committee, where they poison all the jury pools in DC. I mean, if you know how the DC jury pool.
And Tamara Lich here in Ottawa, you don't think that here in Ottawa, the same people that have been pushing this, the same narrative for the last few years. I've shown this, where people just shift and shuffle within cabinet, and the people that actually need to be jailed and or investigated and or stepped down in all levels. I've said this too, federal, municipal, legislative, judicial, all of the friggin' branches, whatever, and the experts that are heads of departments, and even the OPP, OPS, and stuff like that, and mayors and district leaders and premiers, people that were pushing all of this stuff without looking at the information we're getting from people like me. But yeah, no, the same people in. And that's why I look at my social media feed, and it frustrates me because people are still trying to say that what happened here with the Freedom Convoy, was an occupation and all this stuff, when this was funded by and staged and planned by the same people that staged and planned all the other ones, right? And there were a lot of government people too that are not on the right side of history that were also enabling this and supporting it, and also part of this stuff, right? But then you also had people like me and Dallas Alexander and people that I can't name, but there are people that I can, like Tamara Lich and Helen Bruce, who's Ottawa Police Services, who I've donated to her lawyer fees and stuff like that, and I highly encourage people to as well, because she's also someone that's within government who has been vilified, character assassinated, and people within trying to destroy her life and mine and others like us within the community, because we were labeled, and unfortunately, there's so many emails now that are coming out about just how much people were being pushed into groups that they were not part of, and vilified and demonized and stuff like that. It's actually people that were experts and or people of service that we were the ones that were risking their lives, like ants, like little ants, and waiting for wanting other people to raise up, you know what I mean, be behind them, you know what I mean, because they're showing that it's okay, and are proving, you know what I mean, that it's there are people that are courageous enough to do that, and instead we're just getting stopped. But there's another video I shared on my social media, but even how silent compliance is still like a consent. It is like and there are other just like when someone gets married, you know, the person that is doing the wedding vows. Does anyone here have anything, you know, like they want, like, or like that you like that you want to say that can make it where like these people would not be wed, you know, like, you know, say it now or forever hold your peace. So no one says anything. Silent consent. And so like that's exactly what's been happening a lot as well. And or people allowing ego to get in the way of looking at information that people like Peter McCullough and John Campbell and Byron Brettel and that I'm sharing and so many others. Just,
Pool's work.
Just more.
It's like liberals and people who work for the CIA or CIA contractors are disproportionately represented there, and they think of these people as terrorists because of the perception. So I think it is important to present a more full perspective on what happened, because what I saw take place there was much more complex than the version that the January 6th committee, which didn't even have a real Republican counterpoint or counterpoint at all, critical counterpoint, has presented.
Well, they did have Liz Cheney. And
yeah, exactly. Who just got a job at University of Virginia through like Larry Sabato, who's a Democratic pundit hack.
So, and Tucker's going to talk about this, how this reveals the uniparty, this January 6th commission, this January 6th narrative that has been cooked up by the establishment. And just like we had I'm blanking on the guy's name, who was the economic professor who had the Scottish accent we brought on. And Mark Blythe, thank you. And he coined the term global Trumpism, right? I think that was the term. And he said, you know, Trump isn't a local event. And that Brexit was the same thing. It represented the same thing as Trump's election here in the United States, was regular people using the ballot box to express their disdain for the establishment. It wasn't that they necessarily even wanted Brexit. It wasn't even necessarily that they wanted Trump, but they wanted to stick their thumb in the eye of the establishment in some way. And they did. And so this January 6th psyop that was largely manufactured, and I'm going to get to by the intelligence community, like they do all this stuff, was there to make MAGA and Trump and his followers unacceptable in polite society. Like they were going to be, and again, they would have did this to Bernie Sanders and his followers. They started to do it, but Bernie Sanders never grabbed power, and because he was afraid of just this thing. And so now here, Tucker's going to make his case of how they lied, even more so. Boy, that was amazing with that guy. So that guy's sitting in prison for at least 3 years. I heard it was 4.
I didn't know what he even
and
did before this.
What did he do? And so if the cops are opening the door, Tucker made the point. He goes, hey, if the cop opens the door to a liquor store and then you go in and you steal the cash and then they let you back out, isn't the cop complicit in that crime? How are those cops not complicit in this crime with it? What crime did he commit? I don't know. He had a horrible lawyer. Maybe he made bad decisions because he's bipolar, and that's why he got such a bad. He pled guilty to something he probably shouldn't have. But Max, what do you say?
Well, there's one guy who was sentenced to over 7 years, and he didn't even enter the Capitol building, guy Wesley Reffitt. And one of the charges he faced was obstruction of justice because he allegedly threatened his teenage sons against reporting him to law enforcement because he was afraid of going to jail. So 1,000 people have been arrested and taken in this case, and many of them did not enter the building.
So now Tucker's going to let you know this is his big idea here. He's going to lay down his case of how they lied.
Away from the corpus of footage that we spent 3 weeks looking at, it's that the January 6th committee lied. Its members are liars. And as the result of those lies, core civil liberties in this country were eroded. People went to prison. They're in prison as of right now, unjustly. So those lies had consequences. So you have to ask yourself, whatever happened to the members of the January 6th committee? These liars who hurt people and the country. Well, let's see. Adam Schiff is running for Senate. Adam Kinzinger got a job at CNN. Liz Cheney somehow wound up a professor at the University of Virginia, the August University of Virginia. They're all still there. Benny Thompson. Ooh. Listen to his wisdom, but they're liars. And above all, this video proves it. Here's another installment.
One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies played in the events of that day. We know there was some number of undercover federal agents in the crowd at the Capitol. Officials have since admitted that under oath. But what exactly were they doing there? The January 6th committee worked hard to hide the answer to that question. We do know from contemporaneous videotape that a mysterious figure called Ray Epps encouraged the crowd to go into the Capitol. For some reason, Epps has never been indicted for that. But there's no question he did it.
We need to go into the Capitol!
Under public pressure,
So now that guy was a Fed. So that guy's what they call an undercover Fed, and he was there to instigate that riot, and he did. And we've showed you this guy many times. Now the heads of the FBI were asked about this guy, and they said we can't answer any questions. They said that to senators. So I just want to let you know about that guy. Okay.
January 6th committee finally interviewed Ray Epps. Epps told the committee that he never entered the Capitol and therefore never committed a crime. His text messages showed that at 2:12 p.m., he boasted to his nephew that he had, quote,
However, he didn't enter the Capitol, so therefore it's not a crime. So why are there other people that were not even near to that degree of trying to incite a friggin' riot? They were also people that did not enter the Capitol. I hope that this is something that's taken a look at, because again, there's been there's more court hearings that have gone on. There are now just in the last few days, like more people from this staged and planned Ray Epps, orchestrated friggin' event that are being jailed where they're not able to see their children grow up. And these are people that were exploited, incentivized, and there were people that were eliciting emotional responses in them during a time where they were trying to speak out, like have a platform to speak out on very clear disregard for life, and which included these people's children, right? So like this is what I mean, like with parents and or people within a community, like they're trying to speak out on a lot of like there's so much to talk about, you know what I mean? All the with the mandates and the therapeutics and the adverse side effects and the coercion and the lack of accountability and the it's just beyond mind blowing.
Orchestrated the protests at the Capitol. He admitted he helped get people there. Yet, curiously, congressional Democrats consider Ray Epps an ally, not an insurrectionist. Tonight, we can tell you that at the very least, Ray Epps lied in his sworn testimony to the January 6th committee. Epps testified that when he sent the text messages to his nephew, he had already left the Capitol grounds to return to his hotel room.
That's a lie.
So Brian Fox as well, who we now have identified as the person that was holding that flag in Canada, he's also someone that should be in prison, technically, and or on trial, just like Tamara Lich.
Not true. The surveillance footage we found shows that, in fact, Ray Epps remained at the Capitol for at least another half an hour. You're seeing that on your screen now. What was Epps doing there? We can't say, but we do know that he lied to investigators. The January 6th committee likely knew this too. Democrats had access.
Just like January 6th, because I was again, like people were getting their information from me, and yeah. Anyways, and calling stuff out and making it peaceful. And even there's been other protests and stuff like that have been like before and after this that were not as peaceful or as well laid out or whatever you want to call it, and it wasn't even like the people that were part of it that were even the ones that were staging and planning and all that other stuff like I keep saying. And so even with the January 6th stuff, there were people that were there that were not part of any groups, like they were just people there that wanted to be like just like a voice or a presence, to have that there, right? That to speak their voice or whatever you want to call it, and it's been vilified.
To the same tape, yet they defended Ray Epps. No honest investigation would do that. But the point of the January 6th committee was never to investigate anything. The point was to stage a made-for-TV show trial.
Now, I've been making this point here at that show that this is a show trial, and that I've been saying the same thing on stage. And
Nuremberg was a show trial too.
And that's exactly what this is. This is a concocted show trial, and here we go.
Opening moments, the tone of the hearings was almost comically overheated and polemical. There was not a tragedy in American history that Democrats didn't liken to the protests of January 6th.
I'm from a part of the country where people justified the actions of slavery, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynching.
How staged and fraudulent was the work of the January 6th committee? Democrats hired a Good Morning America producer called James Goldston to dramatize the footage they released.
They hired a television producer to make the video more dramatic. They're putting on a show.
Dubbed in audio to make the pictures more sensational, as in a docudrama. The networks carried it all live as if it were real. But Donald Trump was far from the only target.
The enemy is within the House of Representatives.
Within hours of January 6th, Democrats alleged a conspiracy. They claimed their Republican colleagues had helped to plan the breach of the Capitol building. There was never any evidence this was true, none at all, yet it was widely repeated.
Our colleagues are continuing to engage with white nationalist extremist groups, the most violent attack on the Capitol since the War of 1812.
At one point, the January 6th committee publicly accused Republican Congressman Barry Laudermilk of Georgia of leading a reconnaissance mission through the Capitol building the day before.
They were looking for some member of Congress that was involved in all this.
The surveillance tape that we reviewed shows this story is a lie, and the Democrats on the committee knew it was a lie when they told it. The so-called reconnaissance mission Democrats alleged was nothing more than Congressman Laudermilk giving a guided tour to his constituents from Georgia, none of whom were, quote, insurrectionists. Laudermilk didn't even take the group inside the Capitol building. They walked through a congressional office building down the street.
The FBI totally cleared them. The committee knew this before they actually made their accusations against me. It wanted to create this story that would, fit where they wanted the evidence to lead.
Despite the video evidence they possessed proving it wasn't true, the committee included the lie in its final report. Protesters, it says dramatically, quote,
Just
took a
like the
tour of the Capitol with Representative Barry Laudermilk, during which he took pictures of hallways and staircases.
If you read the final report, it was a manifesto against Donald Trump. That's all it was.
When the committee wasn't accusing Republican office holders of planning riots on January 6th, it was accusing them of running away from those riots like cowards. In the case of Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, the committee and their allies accused him of both.
Josh Hawley is a
To prove that Josh Hawley was a coward, the committee released video of him loping out of the building on the afternoon of January 6th with a police escort. The tape became a staple on social media. Democrats laughed with derision.
Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
But
they didn't show the whole video. Here's the part they didn't show.
The surveillance footage we reviewed shows that famous clip was a sham, edited deceptively by the January 6th committee. The clip was propaganda, not evidence. The actual videotape shows that Hawley was one of many lawmakers being ushered out of the building by Capitol Hill police officers. And in fact, Hawley was at the back of the pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many from the January 6th committee.
One of many is for certain. Thomas Massie serves in the Congress.
So it's a bigger deal than I think people are realizing, because they've tried to marginalize Tucker Carlson so much, and yet he's still the #1 news show in America. And for him to be doing this is got to be panicking the people in power. And the big question is, all Tucker Carlson had to do was look at the videotape, and he could see immediately, his staff could see immediately they were lying. They concocted a narrative, and they lied all these different ways. And there's more ways to show you, way more ways. They lied that a cop got killed. The cop didn't get killed. They lied and said he did. We're going to show you that. But the question is, to me, Max, why are they lying? And of course, the obvious answer would be because they're concocting a story, and this was their chance to get rid of Donald Trump and his followers forever. And that's what this was. And they wanted to concoct this. And this isn't something. Go ahead. Let me just throw it to you there.
Yeah, it's a lot like Russiagate, except there is a certain reality there. There was a riot. I call it a low IQ riot that lasted for several hours, and then the crowd was pretty much dispersed once the police arrived on January 6th. So that was real. Russiagate was fake, but Russiagate had a dual-pronged purpose that converged inside the Beltway Uniparty. The purpose was, one, a partisan purpose. Clintonite dead enders wanted to delegitimize Trump's presidency, and then you had the convergence or the confluence with the national security, anti-Russia fanatics, the spooks like John Brennan. So here you have the same thing. The FBI wants to expand its powers massively, and the Capitol Police want to justify their bureaucratic priorities. They've been able to expand to 2 field offices thousands of miles away from DC since January 6th. Their budget is ballooned. And then you have, the January 6th committee. That was just a partisan show to try to destroy what's left of Donald Trump, and possibly, they had their criminal referral. They want to prosecute him so he can never run for president again. That's why they're doing this.
That's why they're doing this.
Why is Tucker doing this? Maybe there's a partisan motivation there. Obviously, it's Fox News. Tucker's, the leading voice of MAGA. But, there are also civil liberties issues in play that run counter to those of the FBI. So if you look at the way I watched the 2 nights so far of Tucker's coverage, and I've been watching MSNBC's coverage and some of CNN's, and it's all uniform. They start out every hour by denouncing Tucker for claiming that January 6th was a mostly peaceful event, a kind of like Woodstock type festival. No. And they completely, they render his critique into a cartoon of what it's not. And, if you actually watch it, Tucker is showing riot footage. He's acknowledging that there was violence there. But what he's doing is poking holes in the January 6th investigation with all of this footage. And one of the most interesting interviews he conducted was with Representative Thomas Massie, the libertarian from Kentucky, who said, as a member of Congress, my security is not threatened by releasing all of this footage after, the proper vetting and letting the public see it all to make up their minds. And that would, what would be wrong with that if it is such a heinous event? And I do think in many ways it was disgraceful what took place and stupid. And it was also a security state trap. But let's see it all, and let's find out potentially who the federal infiltrators actually were. I think there's a cover-up taking place there.
And I said this even, I'll reiterate this, and I was on the record, and I still have the video. I can post it on Rumble if I have not already done it, because I've had multiple YouTube accounts deleted, but that was one of the videos that was deleted right away. I was, again, it's all on social media and stuff like that as well. I was on the record calling this out and saying that this is, again, something to watch out for, and that there's a possibility of gas going to be employed, and people from international, in Interpol, and whatever you want to call it, and so many things. And
that's why there was so little interest in Ray Epps. We also have to ask why Ray Epps wasn't the only person who someone actually took a bullhorn and stood up in front of their followers and said, break through the barricades and disregard the police. And that was the Groypers leader, the Nazi cat, who actually, the guy who's advising Kanye's Ye's presidential run. And he went and had lunch at a Japanese steakhouse, as Anya Parampil reported at the Gray Zone. I think she's the only reporter who noticed this. Nick Fuentes was never arrested, just like Ray Epps was kind of left alone when these were key instigators. It's really
I didn't know he
unusual.
did that.
So now,
Yeah, and like, why don't we constantly see that video?
and
The video's out there.
They
Anyone
trash
can
him
just-
too, and they don't show that.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
interesting.
Matt,
So
you know that story that Chris Hedges told on my show, and I think it was in Henry Kissinger's book or something about when the anti-war protesters were outside the White House and they had lined up school buses inside the fence, and Henry Kissinger looks out the window and he says to Henry Kissinger, "What are those buses there for?" He said, "Oh, because that they're there in case they break through the fence," you know. And he was like, "Oh, I'm afraid," and he said something like, "Well, I'm afraid they'll come for me. And if they get through the fence, they'll come for me." And Chris Hedges says that's exactly where we want them. So how do you reconcile what that story and Chris Hedges saying that with what you just said about January 6th, the protesters?
well, the current incarnation of the U.S. left would never do something to make people in power feel threatened. Although we are seeing in Atlanta some interesting events that I think tie into January 6th. Okay, you had all of these January 6th defendants accused of seditious conspiracy, in other words, conspiracy to overthrow the government, including the Proud Boys and Stuart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers. The New York Times itself has acknowledged that there is no evidence in 50,000 text messages and emails involving the Oath Keepers to build a case that they were actually trying to overthrow the U.S. government and violently install Donald Trump. But all these sedition charges appear to be sticking. The government is inventing and expanding these World War I era laws to apply to common rioters. And we're seeing the same thing in Atlanta with protesters against Cop City, this gigantic police complex that's taking out an old growth forest. What's known as Antifa has been protesting it along with lots of activists there. And a lot of those protesters, several of them are being accused of terrorism. They're facing literal terrorism charges for their role. So the way that the federal government, from Merrick Garland, but particularly Merrick Garland, but from Merrick Garland down to federal prosecutors is behaving is outlandish in the way that they're applying these charges. And so it can apply to the left, and it's happening before our eyes.
You want to see my stand-up?
Okay, so I will stop sharing screen and just put a few more points out there. I decided not to have a backdrop today. I did want to also mention there were riots that were in Calgary, the Eritrean migrants. There was over 150 police. I didn't arrest anyone so far. If you want to check out more information on this in the videos, you can check out Ezra Levant, EZRALEVANT. There's a bunch of others too, but this is just to get again, just more of the footage. And there's a lot of people that are displeased with the fact that there have been no arrests or anything like that, and how there's a lot of issues that are happening now in so many different areas where there's coups happening. I want to talk about that even in Africa, but there's also people that are dealing with migrants all over the place that are being violent and disruptive and doing a lot of stuff and getting away with it. And what they're saying, there's people that are getting arrested, peaceful protesters, pastors feeding the hungry, people not wearing masks, teens playing pond hockey, soccer moms driving too fast. These are all people, these are all, this is sarcasm, but we can't have any of that, but this is allowed. And so there's just a lot of people that are just displeased with that reaction, and there's been no outcry or no one yet that we've seen any leadership or mayors or even the premier of Alberta. No one has spoke out on this yet, and so it's a touchy subject, obviously, but people need to speak out on it, right, and condemn it for what it is, and not be afraid of people that are weak-minded or trying to associate themselves as victims. You know what I mean? That I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just sharing a reality that there's violence going on, actual crimes being committed, and actual people trying to harm Canadians, and we're doing nothing about that yet. There are peaceful people, even people that believe in God, that are getting reprimanded, arrested, jail, and all this sort of stuff. I was just asked, I know people can't see this, but I was asked if I go to church. I have gone to church many times. I even did Sunday school and things like that. And I don't follow a specific religion per se, because I do believe that all the occult and or religious texts are beautiful. And I believe that they do have really good stories within them and good passages and stuff like that, and good lessons for us to look at and consider in our lives, absolutely. And by following those rules or those recommendations through stories, through allegories that are set forth, this is how we can access our higher levels of consciousness and be more like vibrant and or like more energetic, more radiating positive, loving energy and the higher levels and vibrations of emotions like joy, peace, love, and stuff like that, and not hate and anger and resentment and all that stuff. And I do believe that a community is also important, not just like through the individual, because I do believe it's up to us at the individual level to save ourselves. But I do believe it's through following like the teachings of many of these religious and or occult groups. But I don't believe that there's going to be anyone coming to save me necessarily. And I know that this is where there are many different religions that do believe that, and they're waiting for their savior to come and not seeing that it's within them. And that's why I do discuss astrotheosophy as well, and make the correlations between the representations of Jesus Christ possibly being like the representation of the Son, and that there have been many prophets and others throughout history that have the exact same story and stuff like that as this Jesus figure, you know, throughout history, like Dionysus and Mithras and Osiris and even with Brahma and Shiva and Krishna. Like and there's just so many different names given with and then it just discusses again like the ecliptical path that the sun goes through the with the zodiac sign, the constellations, perfectly, you know, and has, you know, predictably throughout our known existence. But I also believe that this is a simulation, not a simulation in a way where we're simulating like another Earth plane. We could possibly be doing that as well, but that this is a created cosmos, a created environment that's energetic, created by energetic fields, hyperboloids and toroidal fields that are the energy being electricity, dielectricity, and magnetism, being projected on a flat plane of inertia. I can go on so many tangents with this stuff, but and I don't think that people that go to church are like I hold no judgment. You know what I mean? Because I do have people in my family as well that do go to church and or did go to church on a regular basis. My grandmother went to church every single morning, and she would light candles and stuff like that. And very traditional conservative woman in her nature, but anyway, I won't get into her political affiliations, but just it is what it is. But she was someone that believed in she was Christian, she was Roman Catholic, and adored the Pope and stuff like that. And so there was no way that there could ever be anything I could possibly say about any links to exploitation of children that, you know, would make her feel, I don't know, it is what it is, but she was a saint, so I'm not gonna say anything. I loved her anyway. So yeah, what's going on in Calgary? There's a lot more violence and stuff like that. That's you know, ongoing, and it's because we're not holding people accountable that are causing this reality to get to where it is, right? And blame ourselves too, right? Like it's voting trends, although or even a lack of voting, like I was saying as well, and yeah, it's just frustrating. So what's going on with Africa here? Okay, this is from Redacted. I'd like to make a shout out to, and I don't agree with, you know, everything that that everyone says, like Tucker Carlson or Jimmy Dore or any of these people that I've shared, and so like I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Falling all over Africa this evening. The fourth Western-controlled African country is in the middle of a military coup to topple its corrupt Western-backed leaders, and other African
Western-backed leader countries.
Nations are today purging their ranks for fear of coups sweeping through other countries in Africa. We'll get into that here in a moment. The country that we're talking about today, though, is Gabon in Western Africa, a neighbor of Congo. Here it is on the map, right there on the water, right there hugging the coast. France, of course, colonized Gabon in the late 19th century. It ruled until about 1960. And during that time, of course, France exploited Gabon's natural resources. After it stopped ruling, it still continued to.
I know I stop these a lot. Take a look at the last few years. I've shared this as well. Like the mines in Canada that have been sold to people like corporatists in from countries like China and multiple other countries, but mostly predominantly like from China. Lithium mines, gold, copper, diamond, and a lot of like realty within Canada. Again, we're getting exploited from within.
To pilfer its resources. They picked their own president to lead that country. He was a puppet of France since the 1960s. The family has been a puppet of the West since the 1960s. Gabon has been under one family leadership, which is still controlled by France as a neo-colonial puppet. And over the past 24 hours, a military coup has unfolded.
Colonialism.
It's Brice Oligui Nguema to be the new leader of Gabon after ousting President Ali Bongo. The former president's family has been in power in Gabon for 55 years. Here is General Brice. You can see him being hoisted up there by his soldiers. The ousted president released a video. Now, it should be very clear. The video you're about to see and the president you're about to see, who's under house arrest, he's like, I mean, it looks like a little weak man now sitting there. This is Obama. This was Obama's like really close ally. He was the man who did his bidding in Libya for him, helped to destabilize Libya. He's been a puppet of the United States and France for years. And he's stuck in this presidential residence right now, releasing this video. He almost looks like President Biden. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know what's going on. And he's asking for people to make noise. Watch.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, president of Gabon. And I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world, to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence and nothing happening. Nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really.
And this is from 3 days ago. There's a lot more that's happened since then. I'm just giving you this because I'm just late on some videos. It's been a couple of days again.
I'm thanking you. Thank you.
Yeah. So to all my people out there who I've kept in poverty for years and enriched myself with the backing of France and the United States and pocketed millions of dollars, I'm calling on all of you, the people I've kept in poverty for so many years and given your resources away to France and the United States. I'm calling on you, good people. I'm calling on you, the good people like Bane and Batman. You, the good people of Gotham, rise up, make some noise for me. Make some noise for me, your little cowardly president. Oh, the people took to the streets, but they're not making noise for him. They're making noise for this coup d'etat. Watch.
See, all they wanted was him to resign. And how many people watching this one, from whatever friggin' country you're from, like how many of you feel that way right now? Like how many of you are going to be so happy when you hear the news that the people that we currently have in charge, that they've stepped down or resigned or finally got arrested, you know what I mean? Or investigations done, you know what I mean? And just not for so long. Like it's
Now,
that is noise.
Now, this is
they're making noise.
They're making noise. Now, this is a cautionary tale. Of course, we all remember. You think about Amin and other military dictators. So, okay, now you have a military coup. That's not the end of the story by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
This is just the beginning of the story. So let's temper our celebrations for a moment. What are they celebrating? Down with corruption. Down with President Ali Bongo, who's long been considered a puppet of the West, a well-known puppet of the West. Obama could get him right on the phone to do his bidding, making millions of dollars from the United States and France while keeping his country in poverty. That we know. Suitcases and bags filled with bundles of banknotes, CFA francs, dollars, euros were found in the son. The chief of staff of Noureddin Bongo, which is the eldest son of the deposed President Ali Bongo. So they found just piles of cash, piles of US dollars and CFA francs and euros. Take a look at this. Payoff money. Suitcases. When I get my cash delivered, I like it to be in large duffel bags. Suitcases shipped right to my door. Keep doing our bidding. This was all found in his house. Where's his son? Oh, his son has been grabbed, arrested for treason. Treason for selling out the people of Gabon. Yeah, take our bribes. Allow us to keep stealing your minerals, basically. That's exactly what this money is. It's blood money. You'll be rewarded handsomely for it. A number of French leaders have admitted that without stealing Africa's resources, France would slide into being a third world country. Here's an article from the Global Times. This article is over 10 years old. And it quotes how both former French President Jacques Chirac and Francois Mitterrand admitted that, quote, without Africa, France will slide down into the rank of a third world power. Yes, both Jacques Chirac and Francois Mitterrand had made that prophecy. Without Africa, France will have no history in the 21st century.
So you know what we can do, or people can do? Give their donations. Africa can give donations or charity to France instead of what's going on right now.
Without Africa, without pilfering its resources, France would be a third world country. Imagine that. Just think about how Africa could rise up and look like Norway, right? A mineral-rich area, just like Norway.
Give you minuscule amounts of the money from the resources and stuff like that. Like, it's just, and this is going to be happening in Canada, and it's happened before, and we have proof of that throughout our northern regions. It's very apparent.
That exploded in popularity and cost and living. What am I trying to say? Not cost
because of oil and gas discovery in the North Sea in
1969. But
right.
Not cost of living. I'm trying to say quality of
prosperity.
Life. Prosperity. Yes. GDP. Exactly. France, just as an idea here. Now you know why France is freaking the hell out. France controls the pumping of Gabon's oil, and the the uranium goes right into France in order to help them build nuclear weapons
or nuclear reactors for the nuclear power plants that France doesn't want to use anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that uranium that's there in Gabon goes right up to France. France simply lined the pockets of the president, giving him millions of dollars. And this relationship has enriched this family for 55 years. And of course, the Bongo family controlled the presidential palace under the watchful eye of the United States and France and other Western leaders. France has 110 companies in Gabon. The U.S. extracts over half of its oil. And nearly half of the country lives in abject poverty. How does that work? An oil-rich nation, a mineral-rich nation, just like Norway, except utter poverty thanks to Western control. Perhaps not any longer, though, because the country is wildly rich in manganese, diamonds, gold, uranium. Minerals are so important to the country's economy that the entire economy revolves around the country's mining industry. The country is rich in timber, by the way, just like Canada. The amount of timber this country has is phenomenal. Billions of barrels of crude oil reserves. So no wonder Western powers like France and the United States are scared shitless at the prospect of Africa kicking out Western influence in Niger and other countries.
And actually raising their standard of living based on their own resources.
Right. And aligning with the BRICS nations. At the Africa Summit a few weeks ago, President Putin saying, we want you to keep your own minerals. You should be able to enjoy your own sovereignty and make partnerships that keep you safe and secure, not be raped by the West. So Africa is lining up some new friends these days, and tired of being bullied. And I want to just show you here the amount of crude oil reserves in Africa in 2021 by country. Just leave this up on the screen here. And I want to see if anything jumps out to you here. Look at the names of all of these different countries. And then I would love for you to do just a simple Google search to see how the United States has destabilized or placed troops or is basically raping the minerals of these countries. The list is pretty exhaustive. All of these countries have some sort of Western meddling involved in them, do they not? No one bigger than Libya, which totally destabilized. And the United States, of course, assassinated Muammar Gaddafi. So look at this list. It's unbelievable. And of course, Gabon.
I'm going on all these tangents. I'm so sorry, but I just want to make sure that these points are said before I forget. But just right now, they're talking again about Russia and nuclear threats and stuff like that. And I just to be clear, I'm not anti-government. I work with the government, and I have for over 20 years of my freaking life. And there are people like me that have been speaking out on this stuff for many years, and literally at our own expenses. And people that are still in the court systems, as we speak now, literally as we speak now, multiple different people and people I can't even name that were even army officers for over 20 years and were kicked out when they were pregnant, at 40 years old, women and high risk pregnancies because it was their first kid, blah, blah, blah. And in the court, so I don't want to say too much about it. But Helen Bruce I can talk about. But so I'm not that I work with them and I've been offering my resume to them and emailing them for the last few years to get back in because I've been working high level contract with them for many years because of my expertise. And so like with Japan and Hiroshima and the Nagasaki bombs, like I do believe that this was like not like the like nuclear per se in their capacity. There are people that are from there that I've spoken to like even years ago, like when I had just started, at RMC in university as a cadet, as an officer cadet, and going on a train ride with a student who was from Okinawa, and she was telling me a different story than what I had soon started to learn about what was going on in those areas, where, like in World War II and stuff like that. Anyway, and so and there are people that had gone back to work. I'll say within days of these blasts, and there are people that allege that they were big bombs, possibly TNT and carpet bombs, and yeah, like things like that, and not these big blasts, like just like and even like people talking about like a ship also close to the port, where there's a lot of explosions like on board possibly that was also targeted, which made a bigger blast site and stuff like that as well. And then even like my point to that with the fallout and the possible radiation exposure and stuff like that. Like, how would that be possible if there were people there within days, and that's why there was like a huge American presence there. It was to like I believe with NATO especially, like I believe it was to manage like the fallout, literally speaking, like, but also like a pun intended of if this information went out. And so, like, I do think that if there's any possibility of target attacks, like on any area or any location, question it and question where it came from, stuff like that. Because like I've said this before too, like with what happened on Snake Island, there, like people from Ukraine and Canada and the U.S., these friggin' moronic experts and mainstream media was saying that people died on Snake Island, like Ukrainian soldiers and Russians, and if Ukraine were like, basically go after yourself, you know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna surrender to you. That didn't happen. That was a lie. And I was literally sharing like them alive and well within hours, just like as proof that this was like all stuff that was being lied about, and that even like the spokesperson, the representative within Ukraine that was speaking out on the war, like things that she was saying, she was even fired for lying to people, and in fact saying the opposite of what was going on. And showing so much corruption within of oh my god, like of a lot of where the money transfers went, of like these like this money that were given to Ukraine after these wars, and why hasn't this money gone to Portland or Maui or East Palestine or like so many other areas, and like billions of funds and also being lost, and within Canada as well, right? We're following suit. And so, and even with Nord Stream 2, that being blown up by people, like within NATO, again, like this is not something that people like us want to be aligned with, like people that do this stuff, right? And so, if NATO was a true and honorable organization that actually was trying to prevent the harm and suffering of people and collateral damage and economic collapse and all that other stuff, then they wouldn't be doing these things, right? And so, like the fact that there are people like that are not learning from history and seeing that even what happened within Europe was not just localized to Germany, it was throughout Europe, and that most of the atrocities that did in fact happen to certain groups, oppressed groups, vilified and character assassinated groups that were innocent human beings and even animals too and stuff like that were slaughtered. And it's just appalling how this stuff was like what happening like in places like Hungary and Ukraine and Poland more so again than even in Germany, and so like even further like being complicit in those areas, people that were being silent and being and submitting to what was going on because of that, and blaming it on a complete other fucking country when it was you, right? Like this is appalling that people are not taking ownership within their own countries of their own misgivings throughout history, and even within Canada, like not acknowledging a lot of these genocidal events that have taken place. And but yeah, and so for people to try to claim that that people that are trying to peacefully protest schmucks, you know what I mean, that are exploiting people and resources. Like I, you know, like I don't know what to say, like, or like I peacefully email and there's phone calls and stuff like that, like sharing proof. I want to see if, no, actually I'll keep with this first before I go on this video.
Was worked lockstep with President Obama to totally destabilize Libya. Interesting, right? My friends stop helping you. Look at this chart. It's unbelievable. And then you have demon, of course, Victoria Nuland, who is, I think, a walking demon, was just in Africa to panicking over this Niger coup. And according to the Gray Zone, she was panicked and desperate. Victoria Nuland. I love seeing her desperate.
Yeah, she is Dolores Umbridge.
She is. According to a veteran South Africa official who attended meetings with senior U.S. diplomats in Pretoria, however, Nuland and her team were demonstrably unprepared to grapple with recent developments on the African continent, particularly the military coup that removed Niger's pro-Western government hours before she launched her multi-stop tour of the region. In over 20 years working with the Americans, I have never seen them so desperate, the official told the Gray Zone, speaking on the condition of anonymity. Desperate. Love seeing her desperate. Of course, though, desperate people do desperate things, very dangerous things. Look how the BBC portrays, though, this uprising, this coup in Africa. Africa's coup pandemic, they're calling it a pandemic, spreads with Bongo's downfall. This is how the BBC frames this, that it's a pandemic that people are rising up to throw off the shackles of colonialism. It's a pandemic. It's really bad for them. Or is it just bad for you in the UK, home of the BBC, and France? So will France slip into being a third world nation as the result of losing all of these resources and uranium and oil reserves and all these other minerals, manganese and timber that they so heavily rely on? Time will tell, but we're going to keep our eye on this and these other African nations, which are now starting to purge their ranks to make sure that there's not military leaders, perhaps, who are thinking about.
See, my brain goes into like the Walk for Freedom on the 20th of March and people like being locked down like by some kind of like martial law again. Like this is all stuff that like gets to me, like I get freaking scared about, which is why I speak out on this stuff to avoid this stuff from happening, which is like, again, why I'm speaking about the Freedom Convoy, to make sure that people were there in a peaceful way, showing proof of crisis actors or riot actors and stuff like that, and or lying about what was going on downtown with the war monuments and the veterans and the homeless people and stuff like that, and so much lies and misinformation, like just like show it and share it, and like there were people that again like declared like the Emergency Act but also weren't listening to people that were there, right? That were there to speak to people and have a platform because there was an audience. And you know, if you stand behind your decisions, then you should be able to speak on them and actually reference the research that you're looking at, reference the scientific medical data, you know what I mean, and actual real expert. It's not showing that there were people that were high-ranking experts and or people that were trying to get their information to these people that were getting pushed aside.
About overthrowing their leadership as well.
Right.
So there's fear running through Africa tonight.
So now it remains for us to watch who are the alliances, right? Because will ECOWAS decide, oh no, this is not acceptable. This is the bloc there that is Western backed that has been speaking out against Niger and saying, oh no, you need to return the country to the previously deposed president. Will they speak out about this? We know that already the United Nations has condemned this coup in Gabon. We know that the US has. We know that the United Kingdom has. And so why will they say that they condemn this coup? Is it because they're speaking for democracy? Is democracy one family in power for 55 years? Will that be the reason that they give us? So we'll watch. Is this a spreading, I wouldn't call it a pandemic, a spreading ethos of decolonialization, where Africa now takes it seriously and says that our resources should go to enriching our population? Is that true? Or is that overly optimistic? It's time to watch these things seriously now that we see this movement.
We're also
did you guys watch The Crown by chance?
Oh yeah, I love The Crown.
So remember like how important Africa has been all the way back then? Like the Queen literally went to Africa to save that relationship, and that's how important it has been to the West for all these years.
Yeah.
To have, it's the thing. It's like, why is Africa not stronger? Why is there not some sort of an African EU or where trade is easy among African countries? It's kept that way on purpose by the West.
Right.
So that Gabon can't easily trade with Congo, its neighbor. Why is that? Because the West tells them not to. Why are they telling us not to? Why are we not allowed to trade with our neighbors? Oh, because France doesn't want us to trade with a country that this is how they keep you under the thumb. They also don't want Africa to industrialize. They want Africa to basically skip that step. The Western countries were able to do that and enrich themselves. Germany, Europe, the United States was able to industrialize in a large capacity. They want them to basically skip that step and be a third world nation that jumps right to using solar power and skip all of the industrialization process. And we're going to watch you do it. So yeah, it's amazing to watch Africa right now. I think it's really a story that needs more attention in the Western media. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at
So because there was talk about Trump and MAGA, the hats, Make America Great Again. John Levy, or Levi, however you want to pronounce his name, he's brilliant. And again, there's a lot of content and information is amazing, but there will be like no one's gonna ever agree with everything that people say. And so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So with this is very interesting. And a good correlation to MAGA hats and top hats. Mine unveiled. See, I wouldn't go, as extreme as not trusting anyone with a top hat. So we're already out of the gate. And for anyone out there that's interested, no, you will it will not turn invisible. When you see liquid mercury, through a mirror. There's really popular videos out there that apparently show that when you have a bowl of mercury and you put it by a mirror, that you don't see the mercury in the mirror. Well, these people actually put these freaking whatever you want to call it, these boxes or whatever you want to call it, these censored boxes over the area of the bowl, or the container that they're in, that so that you don't see it. And so this is what I mean. There's so many good videos out there for that they do such good editing. Even when I see golden crowns, I think of the like the seventh chakra, the sun, like the gold being the element that it represents, and so like that's why crowns are generally speaking gold. It's a representation of the energy field. Where else do we get Mercury nowadays? And I will also reiterate, and I've said this in countless other videos as well, I'll stop sharing. Oh, was I not sharing? I wasn't sharing. Oh my God, that was probably so boring for everyone. I'll get better at this stuff. I'm not gonna like stop this video or anything like that because you heard what was going on, at least. Damn it, I'm so sorry, everyone. But there was good videos in there. So John Levy, Jon and Levy. You can get that video, and I'll make sure I link it on YouTube and Rumble so that you can watch it for yourself. I highly recommend it. And I also wanted to get some other points out of the way. Like it doesn't, I don't even care, but it's just it's somehow friggin' news. But like, yeah, Jill Biden, she has COVID, and so that's out there. There's more. There's like a few other things too. Matt Walsh back in the news. He had a really good speech about mandates coming out of the U.S. And I really wish that we had more people within Canada that were doing the same. And it's just unfortunate that we're not seeing it at that level. And then actually coming with the actual facts coming from the World Health Organization and from CDC's like updated data, and then data that came up before freaking 2020 nightmares and editing and retracting and redacting information, and then finally like resubmitting it or releasing it. Anyway. I still think that people need to take a look at what went on with Maui and in East Palestine and in other areas, and really take a look again at what myself and countless other people are sharing regarding like a series of mismanagement events that happened that made this a lot worse than it should have been, and then a lot of coincidences with people that owned land in those areas and hired firefighters and security professionals to protect their lands because they're freaking millionaires and billionaires like Oprah and Dwayne Rock Johnson, and instead of giving that money and those funds to people that in the area that lost everything and volunteering their homes and giving supplies and stuff like that, like to people that were like dislocated and stuff like that, and exploiting an opportunity. It's just so freaking infuriating. And people resigning in disgrace. And I don't know. Like I don't understand how people don't see this. Well, I do. Like again, this is just like oh my God, like his name is escaping me right now. I got so many friggin' names in my head. But there's so many people for hundreds of years that have said that there are people that have infiltrated like all like different institutions, and like despite it being beneficial and or honorable organizations that are useful and beneficial to like the majority of citizens, there's possibly people that are also in these groups that are exploiting it from the inside, and then also using like these institutions to fund again like more sinister, exploitative hobbies and interests. So let's keep it at that. Dr. Nako Luongo from Old World, Florida. I've talked about him a bunch, and I do like and share a lot of his videos. And I think that I highly encourage people to take a look at his work. And I would love to be on his show. And so like he's talking now about like astrology and signs and stuff like that, coming at it from a scientific, medical, like so many different levels. And so like I also like wanted to add in just like a little bit, like I'm not correcting him in any way. I'm just adding to his to his videos, and I hope that he would have me on to just to give like a little bit more of an additional take on certain signs based on my own representations, and I use the original planets, for example, and he's not using them, and people there's a reason why there's like original planets, and there's a reason why there's new updated planets, right, where we have Neptune, Pluto, and the other one that are not original planets, because the original planets, in my humble opinion, are the sun and the moon and Mars and Venus and Jupiter, and did I say Saturn? I'll just make sure that I verify accurately. Sorry, I got a text and I just completely forgot where I was going to reference. Oh yeah, the original planets. So I think that the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are the original planets, 7 planets, and I believe that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are the ones that have been given to us. Within like the last 100 years, last 70 years or so, and conveniently, even with Pluto being discovered within a month of the Disney character being created as well. Just showing the correlations between the propaganda being spewed by NASA and Disney and connections, and I've shown the work connections with Warner von Braun and others, and Stanley Kubrick and Walt Disney and them being in the same groups and stuff like that. So that's what I'm saying. Even with the Freemasonry, there are good people within it as well, like a lot of good people within it. It's just another institution, or whatever you want to call it, with various ideologies and morals and belief systems and customs that they go by. And by reading their literature, it looks like it's another good, very good symbolic, allegorical book, or the doctrine, or whatever you want to call it. And there's good lessons in there as well, right? So at the individual level, we're supposed to be self-actualized, where it's recommended in so many different books, including what the Freemasons also pass on and portray, but again also being exploited from within. Regarding thou shalt not lie, cheat, steal, commit murder, and all this other stuff, right? The very obvious things that we shouldn't be doing. And throughout all of these different organizations, they all tend to agree with the same kind of basic, rules and customs to live by, because of the pendulum swing, because of not living in your lower levels of vibrations, and all that other stuff, right? You have to raise above it. It's hard to explain this stuff. But anyway, with Dr. Longo, he was talking about Gemini, for example, in his last video, and it was a freaking brilliant video. I highly recommend people take a look at this. And my moon is in Gemini, based on tropical zodiac, and so for me, I believe that Gemini is part of I want to make sure that I get this right. I want to say Mercury and Virgo are the ones that are correlated with Mercury. Let me just verify, because I have freaking notes are upstairs, and correlated with the color blue. And so I just I wrote in that, and I just did the correlations of blue skin people, and I talked about that, and then even Marian blue, based off of the Virgin Mary, which I think to be Mary Magdalene, which I think to be a representation of the moon, but yeah, and which is why feminine colors were used to be associated or correlated with blue, and the red colors that were more correlated or associated, even pinks with masculine colors, more correlated with masculine colors. And then I was talking to him about Virgo being the feminine energies in that sign, and then Gemini being the masculine traits. And so this is why it's important, because if you go off the 7 original planets, then you have the same thing with just the degrees of a circle. You have 5 pairs and then 2 uni signs, or uni pairs, solo freaking whatever you want to call it, things. So for example, you have 12 signs of the zodiac. You have the sun and the moon. That's where Leo and Cancer is ruled by the sun and the moon, and then you have the 5 other planets, where you have the additional 10 planets that are broken down by 5 on each side, showing the masculine and feminine traits in that, and then the colors, and then the planets that are correlated with them as well, and then the connection with the zodiac, with the chakras, and it just, there's so much that you can do when you make that connection. And I was only saying that because he said he didn't know what he would kind of say to people if they asked it, what color is associated with Gemini. And I was saying that if you go off of the lost or hidden, or more not hidden, but it's not mainstream anymore, original planets, and then Gemini's correlated with Mercury / Hermes, or whoever you want to call it. And and possibly correlated with the blue and that chakra as well, and which is the throat chakra. And where else can I go with this stuff? Yeah, so top hats. I can go more into that, but like that's just like the correlation I wanted to make with the MAGA, the Make America Great Again hats. That people that are supporters of Trump wear. And I'm not saying anything good or bad about them again, because they're just regular, average, everyday people. Like I know a lot of people that support Trump, and they're amazing people. So like I'm just saying that this is just like an example of having a symbol like that outwardly shows like your voting trends, for example, very obvious voting trends, and it's very representative and symbolic of like a specific leader, and not so much with it correlated with any other leader of that specific party, the Republican Party. And I also wanted to mention that it's interesting how there's a flip with the color spectrums for the political parties within Canada and North America. And our Liberal Party is red, and our Conservative Party is blue, and it's flipped for you guys with your Republicans and Democrats. And I have voted for 3 different parties in my life, so I'll reiterate that. So like I'm not any type of like extreme anything. I'm a libertarian more at heart than anything, and I've been saying that for years as well. But I think I have so much other information I can share, even about dinosaurs and stuff like that. But I'm already almost 2 hours in, so on that note, I will leave it at that. And tomorrow I'll talk about some other stuff that you're not going to hear on mainstream media. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.